So up until now, we have built up our understanding of exchange rates, interest rate parity and purchasing power parity. Now let us see how all of this connects to the overall economy. Remember the GDP identity from the earlier module? Y is equal to C plus I plus G. It was that form when we had assumed a closed economy, when we had assumed that there was no trade with the rest of the world. But in reality, countries are trading all the time. They are buying goods from abroad, which we call as imports. They are also selling goods to other countries, which are called as exports. So now we will add the term net exports to our GDP identity. So the GDP identity now becomes Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. The net exports term is simply exports minus imports. It tells us whether we are selling more to the world than we are buying from it. So for example, if net export is positive, then what it means is that we are net sellers to the world. Our exports are higher than our imports, and foreign demand is adding to our GDP. For example, net exports is positive, we have a trade surplus. That is, we are a net sellers to the world and foreign demand is adding to our GDP. When net exports is negative, that means that we have a trade deficit. We are net buyers from the world and some of our domestic demand is leaking out to the foreign producers as imports. This seemingly simple addition transforms everything. It means our GDP now depends upon not just on domestic decisions, but also on what is happening in the global economy. It also means that changes in exchange rates, which we have been studying, can directly affect our economy through their impact on the net exports term and hence the GDP. So what exactly determines whether net exports would go up or go down? Let's break down this particular term. Now we just saw that the net exports term matter for the GDP. Let us now understand what makes exports and imports go up or go down. The trade balance is basically the policy name for net exports. This is a term that you would often read in the newspapers as well. It is just another term for net exports. So exports minus imports is equal to trade balance. It is very simple accounting, but the economics behind it is fascinating. Exports largely depend upon three main things. One is the global income, how rich the rest of the world is. Second, it depends upon how expensive or cheap our products are relative to the rest of the world. It is something that we have already seen. What is that describes our relative price? The real exchange rate. The third thing that exports depend upon is whether trade barriers exist, which have a name for them. It is called as tariffs. Similarly to exports, the imports also depend upon three things. Number one, how rich we are, which is our domestic income. Second, similar to the exports, the real exchange rate, what is the relative price of foreign goods vis-a-vis our goods. And the third thing, much like the exports, is the trade barriers that we impose. So for example, when global income rise, that is, suppose that the US economy is booming and Americans have more money to spend, then our exports might increase. Similarly, when our domestic incomes go up, as India is probably growing fast, we have more money to buy imported products. So our domestic demand and the foreign goods demand might also go up. In this case, the imports will go up. The real exchange rate affects both exports and imports in the way that we have already seen. But just to recap, when the rupee depreciates, then in real terms, our goods become cheaper for the foreigners. So the exports will go up because the real exchange rate, which in the short term is tied to the nominal exchange rate, has now become cheaper. And the foreign goods likewise will become more expensive for us because rupee has depreciated in value, rupee has lost its value. So imports will go down. In the case of tariffs, the mechanism is rather straightforward. When India imposes tariffs on imports, then the foreign goods become more expensive, so the imports will fall. When other countries such as US impose tariff on us, then our exports to them would fall because our products will face a much higher cost when exporting to their countries. So, the trade balance on a net basis improves, or it gets more positive or even less negative when global income rises, our exchange rate depreciates, or if we raise tariffs. It worsens when our domestic income rises or foreign countries raise tariff on us. This is an important point that we are going to come back at some point later in the module when we discuss the impact of tariffs. Now that we understand what moves the trade balance, let us see how monetary policy can use exchange rates as a tool to manage the economy.